Last year, my neighbor finalized a promotion into a high six-figure position. Within weeks, a brand new Tesla Model S Plaid sat in his driveway, a gleaming trophy of his newly minted status. 3 months later, that same man knocked on my door to borrow a basic lawnmower because he could not afford a $200 repair on his own. This is not a punchline. This is a mathematical execution. Most of you have been lied to by a system that equates a high salary with wealth. They want you focused on the top line because as long as you are obsessed with earning more to spend more, you remain a high-functioning gear in their machine. The truth is brutal. Making more money is a sophisticated scam if you do not understand the architecture of the gap. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to dismantle the financial illusions keeping the upper middle class in a state of perpetual anxiety. I will show you the exact code used by the 1% to convert labor into permanent sovereignty. This is about the space between what you earn and what you consume, a space where your freedom either breathes or suffocates. Welcome to Pinto Invests. Point 1. The oxygen tank metaphor. To understand your financial life, stop looking at your bank balance as a scoreboard. Instead, imagine you are a deep-sea diver. Your income is the air being pumped down from the surface. Your expenses represent your consumption of that oxygen. The space between the air coming in and the air you breathe out is your reserve. We call this the gap. The average person believes that more air from the surface automatically means they can stay underwater longer. They are wrong. If you double the air supply but double your breathing rate to match it, your reserve remains at zero. You are still one mechanical failure away from drowning. Let us look at two archetypes, high-income Henry and steady Stella. Henry is a surgeon earning $300,000 a year. He lives in a gated community, drives a luxury German SUV, and his children attend the most expensive private schools. His life looks like a masterpiece, but his gap is zero. He processes millions of dollars for the benefit of his mortgage lender and the country club, but he owns none of his time. If Henry stops performing surgeries for 90 days, his entire world collapses. Now look at Stella. She is a senior manager earning $80,000. She lives in a modest, clean apartment and drives a 5-year-old Toyota. Her lifestyle costs $40,000 a year. Stella has a $40,000 gap. Every year she is stockpiling an entire year of her life in reserve. Henry is a high-paid slave. Stella is an emerging sovereign. The system praises Henry because he fuels the economy through consumption. The elite study Stella because she is building an empire. Wealth is not what you spend. It is the autonomy you have captured and kept. Point 2. The invisible tax of status. The greatest predator of your freedom is Parkinson's law. This law dictates that your expenses will instinctively rise to meet your income. It is a psychological gravity that pulls every raise, every bonus, and every windfall back down into the abyss of lifestyle inflation. Think of your financial life as a ship. Most people spend their entire lives trying to build a bigger engine to go faster, but they ignore the fact that their hull is full of holes. As they increase the engine power, the pressure of the water increases, and the leaks grow larger. They are working harder only to stay afloat. This is why the data is so staggering. A 2023 report from Lending Club revealed that 52% of Americans earning between $100,000 and $150,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. Even more shocking, 36% of those earning over $200,000 share the same fate. These people are in the top tier of global earners, yet they are financially fragile. They have fallen for the reward fallacy. They believe that because they worked hard, they deserve to upgrade their baseline. But every time you upgrade your baseline, you are effectively giving yourself a life sentence of more work. You are paying a vanity tax to a society that does not actually care about you. Look at your current lifestyle and the people you are trying to impress. If your income vanished tomorrow, how many of those people would step up to pay your mortgage or your car note? If the answer is zero, then why are you letting their perceived opinion dictate the size of your gap? Tell us in the comments. Are you currently building a life that looks rich or a life that is rich? Point 3. The Big Three Assassins. We are not here to talk about $5 lattes. That is a distraction for the mediocre. To widen the gap significantly, you must attack the three pillars of waste: housing, transportation, and food. Let us weaponize the math on cars. The average American will spend between $400,000 and $600,000 on vehicles over their lifetime. Read that again. That is a luxury home paid in full. When you drive a new car off the lot, it loses 20% of its value instantly. You are literally burning stacks of $100 bills in the parking lot for the privilege of a new car smell. If you choose to drive a reliable used vehicle and keep it for a decade, you aren't just saving $500 a month. You are buying back 3 days of your life every single month. You are not depriving yourself of a car. You are paying a salary to your future self. Housing is the second assassin. The bank tells you what you can afford, which is usually the absolute maximum they can squeeze out of you in interest. The visionaries ignore the bank. They decide on a fixed housing cost and lock it in, regardless of how much their income grows. If you earn $60,000 and spend $20,000 on rent, you have a baseline. If your income grows to $100,000 but you refuse to move to a granite countertop apartment, your gap has just exploded by $40,000. That is the moment you stop being a tenant of the system and start becoming its owner. Food is the final leak. The average household drops nearly $1,000 a month on the convenience of restaurants and takeout. This is a tax on your lack of discipline. We are not suggesting you eat like a hermit, but realize that every $90 dinner is a brick being removed from the foundation of your freedom. Point 4. The invisible raise strategy. The most powerful weapon in the arsenal of the 1% is what I call the invisible raise strategy. The execution is simple, yet it requires a level of stoicism that most people lack. When you receive a raise, a bonus, or a side hustle windfall, that money must never touch your lifestyle. It should be redirected into your gap before it even hits your primary checking account. If you were living perfectly fine on $5,000 a month yesterday, you do not suddenly need $6,000 today just because your boss signed a paper. By keeping your lifestyle stagnant while your income scales, you create a canyon of capital. This is not sacrifice, it is a strategic ambush. You are living a life that is invisible to the consumerist radar. While your peers are busy showing off their new watches, you are quietly accumulating the power to walk away from any job, any SEP, and any situation that does not serve you. Point 5. The ghost of the future. Let us look at the stakes through the lens of time. Imagine two men. Man A earns $200,000 and spends every cent. At age 55, he is exhausted. His health is declining and his industry is changing. But he cannot stop. He is tethered to a massive mortgage and a lifestyle that requires a high-octane salary. He is a prisoner in a golden cage, forced to smile at people he dislikes just to keep the lights on. Man B earned $70,000 for most of his life but kept a 30% gap. At age 55, he has a $1 million portfolio generating enough cash flow to cover his modest needs. He wakes up and decides how to spend his day. He can volunteer, start a passion project, or simply be present for his family. The difference between these two men is not their talent or their luck, it is their respect for the gap. Man A spent his life widening the gaps of the luxury car brands and the banks. Man B spent his life widening his own. Think about the last time you bought something expensive just to feel like you finally made it. Did that feeling of satisfaction last longer than a week? Or did it just create a new, higher level of stress? Be honest with yourself and the community below. What is the one luxury item you regret buying because of the freedom it cost you? Point 6. Deploying the gap. The gap is not a savings account. A savings account is where money goes to die by inflation. The gap is a staging area for your soldiers. Every dollar you save is a soldier. Your job is to deploy them into the battlefield of the S&P 500, real estate, or high-margin businesses where they can capture more dollars and bring them back to you. This is the feedback loop of the elite. If you invest $15,000 a year at an 8% return, that money generates $1,200 in the first year. That $1,200 is now part of your income. It joins your gap. The next year, your gap is bigger not because you worked harder, but because your money worked for you. Eventually, the returns from your invested gap will exceed your living expenses. This is the definition of financial independence. It is the moment the air pump from the surface is no longer necessary. You have built your own oxygen tank. Point 7. The freedom number. The math of freedom is fixed. To retire and maintain your lifestyle, you generally need 25 times your annual expenses invested. This is based on the 4% rule, a standard of U.S. financial planning. If you spend $40,000 a year, your freedom number is $1 million. If you spend $80,000 a year, your freedom number is $2 million. Notice something critical. When you increase your lifestyle, you are not just spending money, you are moving the finish line further away. You are effectively doubling your sentence in the labor market. The high-income doctor who spends $300,000 needs $7.5 million to retire. The teacher who spends $40,000 needs only $1 million. The teacher will be free decades before the doctor, despite earning a fraction of the income. Who is truly wealthier? The one with the shiny car or the one with 30 years of their life back? The gap is the only metric that matters. It is the distance between you and a life of total submission. Wealth is not a number in a bank account. It is a measure of the days you can live without being told what to do. Every dollar you spend on things you don't need is a vote for your own continued servitude. Every dollar you keep in the gap is a vote for your sovereignty. The choice is yours, but you must choose quickly. Time is the only asset that is truly non-renewable. You can always earn more money, but you can never earn more Tuesdays. As for those of you still watching, here is a hard truth. Most financial gurus are too afraid to tell you, you cannot out-earn a lack of discipline. If you cannot manage a $1,000 gap on a $50,000 salary, you will never manage a $10,000 gap on a $500,000 salary. The holes in your boat do not care how big your engine is. They will only get wider under pressure. Start today, not by planning a 10-year strategy, but by taking one micro-action. Open your banking app right now. Find one recurring subscription you do not use. Cancel it. Transfer that exact amount into your investment account. For the next 60 seconds, feel the sensation of being the owner of your life instead of the product. If you are ready to stop processing money for others and start building your own empire, comment the words, "I am awake" below. It lets us know who is part of the 1%. The path to freedom is narrow, but the map is clear. Click the video on your screen right now to learn the next law of the elite. We will see you there. Welcome to the new era.